states. In the contract that we drew up with these folks here, we say North Carolina's waste first, agreement states waste second, and if there is any capacity left over, they could receive waste from anywhere else in the process. Based on the latest numbers that we had that was done by an independent contractor who was estimating the amount of waste, once you take North Carolina's incinerable waste and the agreement states incinerable waste, there will be no other capacity. Each of those other states that Ms. Elmore just mentioned up in the Northeast had to do the capacity assurance plan that North Carolina had to do. They have to plan for the next 20 years how they're going to manage their waste. Not one single state that she just mentioned is planning on using North Carolina's facilities.
The states are not, excuse me, the states are not, but the companies that work in those states are, and that's one important point that needs to be made, is that there is no guarantee that the companies that work in North Carolina are going to send their waste to your facility. They can send it anywhere they want to.
That's absolutely
and
true.
if it's cheaper for them to send it to South Carolina or to Alabama or to wherever, they will do that. And that is there is no guarantee that North Carolina's waste is going to be used to fill this facility. And we think that waste is going to be coming in from all over the country and in other places in the world, for example.
Generators make two decisions on how they decide, or basically three decisions on how they decide to use the facility. How safe is the facility, and how can they collect and minimize their liability, as Mr. Pike said a few minutes ago. A second, how much is it going to cost, and where are they going to have to ship it to? And third, what kind of agreements and contracts do they have in place already? First of all, this will be a premier facility designed to the best quality of any facility in the country, meeting the tightest and strictest standards, which would limit the generator's liabilities the best of any facility in the country. Second, North Carolina's generators would be ridiculous to send off their waste to places in Arizona or someplace else and increase their costs when they had a first-class facility in North Carolina. The only question then is, will contracts that they have already require them for some period of time to ship waste to some other facility?
And I think the supporting point is, for example, in my discussions with the cleanup days, one of the responses I got from the environmental groups is, boy, it is so expensive to have these things treated properly. And I think it's a key point. You know, it's been said that it's cheap, it's easy. This group's response was, it's so expensive. In fact, that is the one reason why we haven't done it before, because it costs so much money to treat these wastes effectively.
We hear first class and properly and state of the art, and all of this means nothing because the toxic metals are going to come out of that smokestack, and they're going to be in that ash, and the landfills, EPA will admit that all landfills leak. It's going to get into the groundwater, it's going to be in the air, and in the surface water, in the groundwater, and people are going to get sick.
I completely disagree. History says that's not true. Not all, in fact, the majority of the landfills don't leak. It's in the government report.
There has never been an in-depth epidemiological study prior to the siting of one of these facilities. All you do is you put the thing there, and then you say, well, you can't prove it's us. That's been your attack from day one. And I say the entire waste management industry sits there and says, well, you can't prove it's us, so it must not be. We have no responsibility and no liability.
That's not the approach at all, John.
And until and unless there's a full-scale, one that would take 2 to 10 years, epidemiological study, you ought not be putting an incinerator anywhere.
Well, I totally disagree. I think, first of all, there are incinerators everywhere in the state already. I mean, there are several operating as we speak.
And the
there are
state
many.
isn't
In fact, there are
That's
some running right now that are just as big as the unit we're talking about here. It's been running for quite some time. Incineration technology is proven technology. It's worked well. You can control these things by operating it correctly. Working with the federal government, Thermalchem, for example, volunteered to work with EPA on metals limits. Metals go into the ash, and the ash is stabilized to federal standards. It has to pass several tests before it can even be put into a landfill. And technically, it is not hazardous, but because of what's called the derived from rule, you treat it as such.
Research from the Southwest Institute found that 53% of these heavy metals come out of the smokestack rather than going into the ash.
Let me pose this. What if your plan, as you're operating now, your protests and whatnot, do not work? What is your next step? What is the next step for Granville County?
You know, the step, it's not one step, it's 1,000 steps. They cannot possibly think that we will ever lie down and be a good neighbor to Thermalchem or the Hazardous Waste Management Commission. We will fight them for the full 20 to 30 years. We'll do our dead level best after they get there to shut them down. because there's absolutely, I've listened to 20 hours of I don't know, or no, we don't have the answer to this, that, and the other. And there's no way we're going to feel secure if that thing comes to our county. And if they give us $2 million a year, we're going to use all $2 million a year to try and shut them down and get them out of Granville County, and hopefully they won't go anywhere else. You know, and until and unless they prove that it's 100%, not 99.999%, but 100% safe and secure, they are not an acceptable risk to us or anybody else in North Carolina. And the legislature ought to stand up and take notice.
How are they going to prove? How are they going to prove that whether they're safe? What do you think?
First of all, they don't do monitoring. They do one test burn at the beginning of the process, and they might test it again, what, once a year, maybe.
No, that's good for 10 years.
Well, at any rate, they test the thing to see if it's burning hot enough. They have no earthly idea what the emissions are coming out, and they acknowledge that. They don't know what the compounds are or what the extent is. The Rock Hill, South Carolina plant in January was tested one time, and they were emitting or feeding, and I'm not sure which, 25 times the level of arsenic that was recommended by the EPA. It was cited by the EPA, and they said, must not have been us, must have been somebody else. We appeal the decision, or we deny it.
We didn't appeal anything. Our facility is monitored quite frequently. About 100 times a year, people come in and check our facility. The federal government comes in routinely and takes a look at data, and what Mr. Pike is referring to is that it's like an IRS audit. They're very thorough, very thorough. They took some paper and they come to some conclusions. The way the audit process works is they give us findings and we respond to it. EPA took a number that was inaccurate because they took it off of a lab test that was not complete. We provided them with the rest of the information, and they agreed. They said that there was not an issue with arsenic and being fed to the unit.
Now, you mentioned you test your people that work there, but you have not bothered to do a testing of citizens.
Well, I don't know if bothered is the right word.
Well, let's say you've not undertaken that possibility of extending your testing.
Well, here's the way we feel about it. First of all, at any one time, there was a reference to people wearing suits, and at any one time there's 100 people on our plant site, and about less than 10, probably 8, actually have to suit up in any sort of protective gear. We bring groups right up to the incinerator because it's safe. If our approach goes, if there isn't a danger, shouldn't it not be with the people who work with it every single day and who stand right next to the equipment and right next to the materials? They're the people who are exposed more than anyone else. So we look at that group and say that group should be a good indication as to what's going on in our facility. In addition to ongoing monitoring, testing every day, the types of procedures we take to measure atmospheric emission that exists in the facility, it's the kind of approach we take. Safety and compliance first.
There is no way to continuously monitor the heavy metals. No technology available for that.
You control heavy metals by the feed rate. That's how you do it.
If you do not find an acceptable area to set up this incinerator, what's going to happen? I mean, are we going to go back to sending it out to other states?
Presently, the mandate to the Hazardous Waste Management Commission is to find a site. I guess that the only alternative would be that the General Assembly would have to create a new mandate that gave the Commission some other alternative method to pursue. At this point in time, we have no authority except for that one, which is to select a site, design a facility, permit that facility, select an operator, and go forth with the operation. If the Commission or if the General Assembly decides to recreate the Commission into a waste reduction network, they surely have that prerogative. Yay. But they have not done that at this point in time.
So that's the next step that you would have.
We have a very limited focus because we're not allowed to do anything else. The General Assembly has specified what we're entitled to do.
To give you an idea of where GROW is as a group, up to this point we have been protest and rally, and we have also been educating and disseminating information. What we are doing now as a group is we're turning into a legislative lobbying body, and we are going to worry the legislature until they sit down and do what the citizens of North Carolina want, which is to responsibly deal with the waste management issue rather than trying to push it off on an independent body which is accountable to no one but the governor, like the Waste Management Commission.
How much support have you had from other counties?
We are working with all of the organizations that are in the NC1 group, which is, I believe, 35 to 36. That's one of the reasons why we've been able to get off the ground so quickly, is because there are folks from around the state as well as other parts of the nation who are sending us information, providing us with the expertise that is necessary to fight this. And if we run it out of Granville County, we're going to chase it across the state, because we do not believe that any community should be turned into an environmental sacrifice zone, which is exactly what this is.
Iredell and Rowan County, is the controversy as hot and heated as it is in Granville County at this point?
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed, they feel as strong or stronger than we do, and if they are cited, we will go over there and help them, and we have made an agreement with them. If we are cited, they're going to come over and help us. So this is a partnership that we're making with any county who is picked as a potential site. We will help them.
There is a commitment on the part of all these 36 organizations that we will assist any victim county in the state of North Carolina that is threatened with a hazardous waste incinerator or landfill.
You got to recognize, I think it's a critical issue, and it is an emotional issue. But we as a society enjoy all the conveniences we have, but we don't know what to do with our waste problems. And that's hazardous waste, the low-level nuclear waste, municipal landfills. Everyone enjoys all our conveniences, but we don't know how we want to handle waste problems. Our approach is send it over there. Send it over there.
Just don't burn it or bury it.
I think that one important point is that we do know how we want to handle it. The problem is that the people that are in decision-making positions in the state are not listening. And what we're going to say is that if elected officials do not listen, then we're going to put somebody else in there that will listen, because we think that the officials should be accountable to the citizens, and that's what we're going to ensure.
Did you anticipate this kind of reaction from Granville County or from...
I think that the Commission has said all along that they were not surprised that any particular community might be opposed to the process, or at least some citizens within the community might be opposed to the process.
So you sort of knew it was going to come. Did you realize that it would pick up the momentum that it has picked up?
I'm not sure that we realized that it would take on the various characteristics that it has, but I think we were not surprised that it was a vociferous opposition.
How much has the public demonstration really affected how you would operate in what you're trying to do?
Well, I think the Commission has said all along that two things. First of all, that they are concerned about the public's feelings in the process. They want to get the input from the citizens of any particular county in which a site is designated as suitable. But the Commission's mandate is to select a site based on the best available technical information. And we are limited in that respect to reviewing the data based on the best available technical information. And we have asked repeatedly for the counties to provide us with as much technical information as we possibly can get about the site and that area that surrounds the site.
They can't possibly pick the very best possible site in a hurry-up offense. And it is an offense because it's very offensive. They cannot possibly do it in the time frame they've scheduled. And that was the gist of the judge's ruling yesterday, that is unconscionable. It is certainly unreasonable to expect the best possible site to be selected. And they're not looking for the best site, they're looking for the quickest site. And that is wrong. It is wrong from the very beginning and should be changed.
And the people of North Carolina do not feel that they have had a say in this whole process. And the formal hearings that have been held, the comment periods, you know, that's nothing but a sham, because the people voice their opinions and they are told thank you very much, and that's the end of that. It's not even listened to.
Okay, very quickly, what's your next step? Where are you going? I mean,
well, we're raising money. We're raising other things.
Consciousness, and also we're going to raise the consciousness and the attention level of the legislature. We think that this is just as important an issue as the budget, and we think that it's connected with the budget because of the tremendous liability that the estate is going to incur for the citizens of North Carolina in the next 20 to 30 years.
And what's your next step?
We have no choice. The mandate from the General Assembly is to go forward.
Our job is to work as a hired contractor for the state of North Carolina and provide the services that the state has requested of us.
Well, thank you very much. And we know that this controversy will go on in the next few weeks, and we will certainly be looking and listening very closely as to what happens. Stay with us. We'll be right back with a wrap-up.
Dateline 1958. WRAL-TV 5 builds one of the most technologically advanced broadcast facilities in the nation, sending out a crystal clear signal from an 1,170-foot tower of power. Then, in 1978, WRAL erects the tallest tower on the East Coast, 2,000 feet toward the heavens. But on one cold, icy December day, that 4 million pounds of steel came tumbling down. But we're on our way back up. Construction has begun on a new tower that will give you a sharper look at WRAL-TV. We'll keep you updated.
As the week closed, an appeals court panel overturned the injunction that prevented the state from testing the Granville County site. While the county has 10 days to review the appeal and act on it, the Hazardous Waste Commission hopes to begin research on the area as early as midweek. The Granville residents fighting the incinerator say the appeals court decision was a setback, but their fight is not over. Hazardous waste is one of the consequences of our lifestyles. With hazards, there are risks. With risks, there are opposition and protest. People living in the areas under consideration feel they are in a no-win situation. But the state is stuck between a rock and a hard place. We made a deal with other states, and it's North Carolina's turn to live up to our end of the deal. The state's selling job is made tougher by questions raised by people living near the shutdown Caldwell County's incinerator. There does not appear to be much room for compromise here either. Based on what we have heard here this morning, opponents do not want any kind of incinerator anywhere. The state is mandated to select a site in less than a month. It's looking more and more as if the final decision will be made in a court of law. How do you feel about this issue? We'd like to hear from you about this or any other subject we've covered on Assignment Sunday.